All right. Further, if you have time.
I have time, maybe.
Okay. Okay, maybe a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
So we are reading the stories of the Sahaba, Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, and this is from the book Fazail-e-Amaal, and this is chapter number 2, and we are reading about the fear of Allah. People who used to be scared of Allah. So I'm reading the story number 4. It's about Rasulullah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam weeps all night.
Right.
So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Muhammad, once wept all night as he kept repeating the words, "Inna tu'adhibuhum fa innahum ibaduk wa in taghfir lahum fa innaka antal azizal hakim." And that's a verse from Quran, from Surah Al-Ma'idah. This is verse number 118, and the translation is, "If you punish them, then verily they are your slaves, and you are at liberty to treat them as you please. And if you forgive them, then surely you are the mighty, the wise, and your reason for doing so is filled with wisdom." Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi also once wept all night as he recited the words, "Wamtazul yawma ayyuhal mujrimun." The announcement will be made on the day of Qiyamah, and that's from the Surah Yasin. This is ayah number 59. "Separate yourself from the mu'mineen today, O you criminals such as kuffar." This verse means that on the day of Qiyamah, the day of judgment, the sinners will be told to separate themselves from the righteous ones, even though they had all been mixing with each other in this world. Regardless of how much one weeps after hearing this, it is still too little, because no one can be certain whether they will be amongst the sinful ones on that day or with the righteous ones. So this was the story number 4 about having a fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he was used to weep all night with the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The story number 5 in this series is Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu's fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like how Hazrat Abu Bakr, he was the most trusted friend of Rasulullah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was used to have fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. According to the Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu is the greatest person after the Anbiya, after the Anbiya alayhi salam. Even remember Prophet Muhammad once sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said that even if there was a prophet after me, I think he said about Umar, or he said about Umar. But so it is certain that he is destined for Jannah, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself gave him the good news that he would be the leader of a group of person in Jannah. Jannah means paradise. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once remarked, "Abu Bakr's name shall be called out from all the gates of Jannah, and he will be the first of my ummah to enter it." That was because of his fear. So we are reading a little bit more. Despite all of this, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu used to say, "I wish I were a tree that would be cut and disposed of." He would say, "I wish I were a blade of grass that was eaten by some animal." He would also say, "I wish I were a hair on the body of a mu'min." He once entered an orchard where he saw an animal sitting. He sighed deeply and said, "What enjoyment do you not have? You eat, you drink, take shade beneath the trees, and have no concerns for reckoning of the day of Qiyamah. If only Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu could have been like you. That's what he said about himself. If only I could have been like you. Hazrat Rabia Aslami radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates, I once had an argument with Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, during which he told me something that I did not like. He immediately realized his silliness and said to me, please repeat to me what I said to you in retaliation. When I refused to do so, he said that if I did not, he would have to refer the matter to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, I was still adamant not to. He then stood up and left. Some men of the Banu Aslam tribe arrived there and remarked, how strange, he does the wrong and then threatens to complain to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you know who he is? He is Abu Bakr Siddiq. Upsetting him upsets Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upsetting Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam entails upsetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased, who can save Rabia from destruction? I then went to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and narrated the whole incident to him. He said, while you are not supposed to repeat the words in retaliation, you could have said, may Allah forgive you, O Abu Bakr. So look at the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu possessed. As soon as he uttered something mildly unpleasant, he immediately asks Hazrat Rabia radiallahu ta'ala anhu to take retribution from him, failing which he wishes to ask Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make the request on his behalf. Nowadays, we say so many offensive words to each other, never thinking about the reckoning in the Akhirah. So, that was the story number 5 about the fear of Allah in Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And we will read one more. That's number 6, the condition of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu would often hold a straw in his hand and say, I wish I were a straw like this. He would sometimes say, I wish my mother had not given birth to me. He was once busy with some important work when a person came to him to request justice from someone who had behaved unjustly towards him. So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu struck him with his whip and said, you do not come when I sit for this purpose, but when I am engaged in other work, you come to me. You come to ask me to have justice taken from people. The person then left, but Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu sent for him, handing his whip over to him. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, you now whip me to make matters even. The man, however, said, I forgive you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu then went home, performed 2 rakat salah prayer in repentance, and addressed himself saying, O Umar, you were low, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated you. You were astray, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you. You were humiliated, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you honor and then granted you rule over his people. Now when one of them comes and asks you for justice to be done after he had been wronged, you beat him instead. What answer will you give your Rabb, your God, your Almighty, tomorrow on the day of Qiyamah, on the day of judgment? He then kept on scolding himself in this manner for a long, very long time. Now Hazrat Aslam radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was the slave of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, reports that he once accompanied him on his usual round towards Hara, an area just outside Medina. When Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu saw a fire in the distance, he said, "Perhaps that is a caravan that could not enter the town when night fell. Let us see to them and arrange for their safety for the night." When he reached there, he found a woman and had children. The children were crying and screaming, while the woman had a pan over the fire. All that was in the pan was some water. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu greeted her with salam and approached her after first securing her permission. Their conversation ensued as follows.
Inshallah.
Yeah, you can go if you need to. Walaikum salam. So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, why are these children crying? The women, they are very hungry. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, what is in the pan? The woman, just some water to pacify the children to sleep in the hope that food is being prepared for them. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge between Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu and myself on the day of Qiyamah for neglecting me in my need. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, as he replied, "May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on you. How can Umar know of your need?" The woman, "Who is our leader?" The woman said, "Who is our leader? He should keep himself informed about us." Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu then returned to the town and immediately proceeded to the state treasury, the Fazail-e-Amaal, that's what we call in Arabic, to fill a sack with flour, dates, fat and clothing, and also some dirhams. When the sack was filled, he instructed Hazrat Aslam radiallahu ta'ala anha to load it on his back. "Oh no, Amirul Mu'mineen, let me carry this sack." However, despite his insistence, Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anha refused to allow him to carry the sack and remarked, "Will you carry my load on the day of Qiyamah, on the day of judgment? I must carry this bag because I shall be questioned about the woman." Hazrat Aslam radiallahu ta'ala anhu then lifted the bag on Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu's back, and the Amirul Mu'mineen mean the ruler at that time for the Muslim. Amirul Mu'mineen carried it speedily to the woman's tent with Hazrat Aslam radiallahu ta'ala anhu close behind. So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu himself placed some flour, fat and dates in the pan, stirred the mixture and blew into the fire to stoke it. Hazrat Aslam radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, "I could see the smoke passing through his thick beard." When the food was ready, Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu himself served it to the family. When they had eaten to their fill, the children were overjoyed and began to play. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu then handed over what was left over for them to eat later. The woman felt very grateful and said, "Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. You deserve to be Khalifa in place of Umar." So she didn't even know he was Khalifa himself. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu replied, "When do you see the Khalifa? You will find me there." So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu then left the camp and sat at a place nearby to watch the children. Assalamu alaikum. On his way back, he said, "I sat there because I had seen these children weeping, and now I like to see them laughing." So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to recite lengthy surahs like surahs the likes of Surah Kahf and Surah Taha in the Fajr Salah, and would weep so much that his weeping could be heard right up to the rows at the rear of the masjid. He was once reciting Surah Yusuf in the Fajr Salah when he came to the verse, Innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. I complain of my sorrow and my grief only to Allah. So this is Surah Yusuf, ayah number 86. He then wept so much that he could not recite any further. He would sometimes fall down during the Tahajjud Salah and then fall ill. Tahajjud Salah is the prayer for the night. Now, such was the fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts of Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu, whose name sent shivers down the spines of even the most powerful kings. In fact, even today's people, hundreds of years later, we are struck by him. There is no king or even governor nowadays who cares for his people as Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu did when he was Amirul Mu'mineen. So we will cut this down here. Thank you very much for listening and watching and being here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.